All right, go ahead.
Sure. Hello and welcome to the 2026 SUNY Online Summit. I'm Lori Fox. I'm the Director of Educational Technology at SUNY Geneseo. I'm your session moderator and will be available in the chat during the session to watch for questions. We will answer presentation questions at the end of the session. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. You can read their full, very impressive bios online, but for now, I put together a few friendly highlights to introduce you to our speakers. So please join me in welcoming JoAnna Brosnan from the SUNY Office of Institutional Research and Data Analytics, an IR pro who accidentally found her way into the field over a decade ago, and she's been making data make sense ever since. With years of SUNY campus and system level experience, JoAnna is known for sharing all things data from Excel basics to FERPA and data governance with clarity, generosity, and a collaborative spirit. When she's not empowering others through data, she's volunteering as a firefighter, traveling, gaming, and hanging out with her dogs, Duck and Goose, which pretty much tells you everything you need to know about how awesome she is. Also, welcome Viktorya Mirzoyan, Impact Analysis at SUNY Online, who turns dashboards, surveys, and assessments into insights that actually improve the online learning experience. With more than 15 years in higher ed across 2 countries and dual master's degrees in international relations, Viktorya brings a truly global perspective to data-driven decision making. When she's not connecting data to real-world impact, she's tackling puzzles, traveling, and exploring new tastes, which feels very on brand for someone who loves solving complex problems. JoAnna and Viktorya.
Thank you so much, Lori. I think I'm gonna replace my official bio with the one you just
I,
shared with us.
I
I
can
love
send it
that.
to both of you if you want. I need to hear more
Absolutely.
about the gaming from JoAnna, but some other time.
So with that, I'm gonna share my screen quickly and just let me know that you can see it full screen.
Nope, I was seeing this, there's full screen. Yep, nice.
Okay, perfect. Uh, Again, thank you, Lori, for a warm introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. As Lori mentioned, my name is Viktorya Mirzoyan, and I'm joined today by my colleague, JoAnna Brosnan. JoAnna, would you like to say a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great. So in the session today titled Show Me the Data, we are going to treat the data like a puzzle that we solve together. As you learned from my bio that Lori created, I'm a huge puzzle fan, and I'm curious to know if there are any others in the room. So let us know in the chat if there are, and let us know what's your personal best puzzle is so far. Mine is a 2,000 piece puzzle that I completed a couple of years ago. So each metric, each definition, and each dashboard is only a piece of the puzzle. A single piece alone can feel abstract, but when we align the pieces, the picture that emerges is more effective and more accessible. So our goal today in this session is simple. It is to show you where the pieces are, how they fit, and how you can use them to move from information to action fast with clarity, consistency, and an eye on student success. Here's the path we'll follow. We'll start briefly with why data matters and then why definitions matter. Because the puzzle pieces fit only if they're cut from the same pattern. We'll tour the SUNY system and SUNY online data tools and resources. We'll put SUNY in the national context. We'll layer in some labor market intelligence, and then we'll wrap up some key takeaways from the session. And time permitting, we'll answer some questions in the end. For those of you who are outside of SUNY, just very quickly who we are at SUNY. SUNY, or State University of New York, is woven into the fabric of New York State communities. SUNY is the largest comprehensive university system in the United States. We serve 1.3 million students through credit-bearing courses and programs and through continuing education and community outreach activities. On the slide, the image on the slide is a map of New York State showing the location of 64 campuses by sector. There are 14 university centers that are marked in dark blue, 13 comprehensive colleges in green, 7 technology colleges in red, and 30 community colleges that are marked in brown. Each campus serves distinct learners with distinct needs, and this diversity is SUNY's superpower, and also why definitions and tools matter so much. That data helps us see the outlines of the picture before we commit resources. It turns those best guesses into confident decisions that help us change outcomes for students and communities. More importantly to me, data is not just a record of what happened, but a guide to what we do next. As Jocelyn also mentioned, data improves strategic alignment, helping to focus those conversations on evidence rather than anecdotes. It improves decision-making. Most importantly to me, it is essential to look data as an institutional asset. And not just numbers that we report once or twice a year, but a living system of signals that we can manage and use to steer. Now, why definitions matter? Because even the best puzzle piece stalls if pieces are cut differently. If one department's online is another department's hybrid, we're spending time and energy arguing about the shape and not solving the picture. Shared definitions ensure that we are sorting the same pieces in the same way. Common definitions create consistency and accuracy. They allow to compare this year's metric to last year's or Campus A metrics to their peers. They create collaboration and transparency. When everyone agrees on what's being measured, it's easier to align, to intervene when necessary, and to improve. When puzzle pieces click, decision-making speeds up, and with common vocabulary, data is not just a mirror, but a map and a guide, as I said, to what we do next. So next, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, JoAnna, who is going to share all the data tools, some of the great data tools and resources that are available at SUNY System Institutional Research. And JoAnna, let me know when to advance the slides.
Thanks so much. We can click into the next. Okay, so today I wanted to highlight some of the tools and resources that are available through the OIRDA, Office of Institutional Research and Data Analytics, our webpage. So to get to the webpage from the SUNY homepage, which is www.suny.edu, there's a couple of ways that you can navigate to the IR page itself. You can click on the SUNY A to Z and scroll down to institutional research, or there's a search bar. You can type institutional research in, hit search, and it's the fourth option down. When you get to the IR webpage, these are what are available for you to click on. So there's the data reports, the data resources, and we also have our SUNY IR data governance framework. The data reports contains SUNY graduates post-completion wages dashboards, and we are going to talk more about the resources. Yeah, perfect. So you'll notice that some of these documents are PDFs, some are web pages, some are dashboards, and some will bring you to web pages with more dashboards on them. There's a lot here. We're going to talk about a few of these in depth, but just to give a general sense of the information and the data that are found within these tools and resources. These are updated about 2 times a year, especially the fact book, the data summaries, the fast facts, and the glossary. The first time would be late fall, November, December, after we get our official enrollment figures from the fall. And then we would update these again in the spring after we get some of the other data that isn't quite yet available in fall. So for example, we would update the human resources data, the number of faculty, for example. So I would recommend, come back at least once or twice a year and, check out what has changed. So once we click into the next, we can take a look at the fact book. And what this is showing is a snip of the table of contents. So I just want to speak to what you would find within this fact book. Obviously, this is an example of some of the data elements that you would find in here. But just to kind of give a visual of what that would actually look like, there's 10 years of data available for each of these points, really 11 years, so you can see the 10-year trend. Available within here is the SUNY and sector totals. Our sectors include community colleges, there's the technology colleges, our comprehensive universities and campuses, as well as our doctoral universities. So you can see those SUNY and sector totals as well as the figures for each campus. So you'll see in the SNP that percent exclusively online and percent some online are included in here. So if you want to get a full picture of what that looks like across the entire system, those would be some pages that may be of interest to you. Again, this is a SNP. So just to speak to some of the other areas that are covered in this document, fall enrollment by race ethnicity is also included. Fall enrollment by broad discipline area. So that's going to look at the academic program zip codes, things like that. Academic year is included. So in the snippet, we could see, right, this is looking at the fall, so we can see how that differs for an academic year. Completions data is included, as well as student outcomes and employee data. At the end of this document, one of the things that I certainly want to highlight, there is a glossary. So if you have a question, oh my goodness, what does some online mean versus exclusively online? You can refer back to the glossary and get a sense of what the data source is, the element, and the definition. I think that's really nice, especially with a public-facing document where you can dig a little bit deeper, but you still have an understanding from a high level. Go ahead. Thank you. So that is our fact book. And this is a snip of our SUNY executive data summaries. So I think of this more as a quote unquote one pager. So the fact book will have the data elements for the entire system on one page. So it's like one page per element, whereas this has all of the elements per page per campus. So still within here are the university and sector totals, but then if you were to print this out, it's almost like a page per campus. So we can see here that there are 6 years of data to look at a 5-year trend. So that is certainly helpful. I know that the leadership in the SUNY IR office definitely refers to these documents often. And it's our hope that campus leaders and others can refer to this document, and hopefully it's useful. It can answer some high-level questions in a pinch and quickly. And beyond that, we also hope that, at least in some cases, it can reduce the number of duplicated efforts. So those are some of the uses for it from one lens. Another reason that I absolutely love this document is if you take a look at the left-hand side, next to each row, there's a number. And again, I mentioned if you print this out, it's almost like one page per campus. So the front page would have all of these data elements like we see here. And on the back of that page, and we can go ahead to the next slide, it shows exactly all of the information for where that data element with the corresponding row is actually coming from. So you'll see in many of these, the SUNY data warehouse happens to be the source. Our data comes from what we call SIRA submissions. So those are reports that the campuses complete. They're standardized. They get sent to system administration. There's a whole process. We'll speak about this a little bit more. But through that process, that's the data comprising the SUNY data warehouse. So you can get an idea. For example, if we wanted to look at EOP enrollment, where is that coming from? Okay, so we're looking specifically at a fall term, not for the academic year. It's looking at our home institution students. They have to be in a program, and the element to identify them would be the EOP home institution student count. So even if we're not exactly sure where and how that element got there, this is really useful to help show that and help point folks in the right direction. Another use for this is we have some newer staff members, but in the IR office at System Administration, but also through the CPD course. This can be helpful for new folks to try to match some figures and come up with the analyses. And it's kind of a checks and balance, right? It's almost easy to get a system to pull a number sometimes, but how do you know if it's the right number? So these are just some standard high level, analyses. So it can be really helpful in that sense as well. And I like that it could be used for those at the campus level as well as the system administration level. So it's the same for everybody. It's transparent and it's public. So it's out there, which is great. We can go to the next one. So again, still highlighting some of the tools and resources that live out there. Definitely wanted to speak about the SUNY FastFacts webpage. On this webpage, there's more than quote unquote just the enrollment data that we see in the SNP here. It also would include some information like enrollment demographics, completions data, graduation rates data, home counts data, which has to do with residency and where our students are from, tuition and fees for the year, the SUNY Research Foundation data, so the number of awards, sponsored programs, those types of data points, the number of employees. And I want to highlight that most of those sections, if you will, that I just listed have a corresponding dashboard. So in the screenshot that we see here, this is the enrollment data, and at the bottom of the enrollment data section is a blue bar that says View Detailed SUNY Enrollment Data. That's a clickable bar that will bring you to an interactive Tableau dashboard where you can see all of the same information, but you can dig deeper in, you can dial in appropriately, you can use the years to look at prior years. The FastFacts is going to highlight the most current fall or the most current academic year that we're in. But if you want to compare that, for example, this enrollment data dashboard would go back to fall 2015. So you can take a look at that type of stuff. These are obviously our public-facing dashboards, so feel free to go check them out, dig in. And if you have any questions or if you find that, wow, I was really looking for something, I'm kind of surprised it's not here. You can send those questions and that information to ir@suny.edu, which we'll talk about again. So that's a FastFacts page. The SUNY IR Glossary of Terms is one of my favorite documents. I think that it was one of the most referenced documents personally when I was both at the campus level and then again here at system administration. And for different reasons, but the main reason being it's a comprehensive document that has all of the quote unquote SUNY relevant terms that you're likely hearing, including historical or new elements and initiatives that perhaps are coming down the pike. It's all in here. So again, I just can't overstate how often this is referenced and used. So for example, if I needed a refresher, what's the difference between hybrid versus high flex? I can come right to the glossary of terms, refresh myself on what that difference is. And actually, one of the great things about this is that for those types of data elements where there's a link to the CIRRUS reporting, which again is the campus reports that they submit to us, there's data dictionaries for those reports, which has the codes, the definitions, the business rules, et cetera, for the reporting itself. So if there's a term in the glossary of terms that also coincides with the CIRRUS element, we'll tell what the CIRRUS element is in the glossary. So the intention there is that we're referring folks to the proper places, that there's some transparency and things are kind of linked together. So again, on the back of the executive data summaries should point you to, a data element, which should also link to a glossary of terms. So it's all linked, it all comes together, and it's all important. With the glossary of terms, we aim to update this annually. And when we do so, we will highlight the terms that have been added since the last revision. So for example, in this snippet, we could see that academic program micro-credential has a bit of a gray highlight. That's just indicating that it's a newly added element. So take a look for those gray highlights to make sure that you're up to date. At the end of this document is a list of commonly used acronyms, which can be really, really helpful for folks who are maybe new to IR or new to SUNY or new to higher education in general, because there are certainly plenty of acronyms that we're using on a regular basis. So that's also in the back of here. It could be, again, a quick reference. So I just, again, can't understate how important it can be to share this out. Maybe your IR person on campus knows about this resource, but maybe others don't. And so just having a shared understanding of those definitions and collaborating can be very, very impactful. Okay, the next slide. So I've mentioned CIRRUS a few times now. This is what it stands for. It's the SUNY Institutional Research Information System. And so again, those are reports that the campuses submit to us at sysadmin. There's a process. To give an idea of some of the data that are collected, we have a core CIRRUS submission, a term section, degrees awarded. There's a few enrollment ones. There's financial aid. And those are all collected on, as appropriate. So financial aid is once a year, for example, whereas enrollment would be more often. From that data, from that collection is how our data warehouses are filled, right? So those data elements that are getting sent to us is what is basically establishing the data within the warehouses. So once that data lives there, we can use it for various analyses, which we do. So some of that obviously could be what we've just taken a look at, some of the fast facts and executive summaries. Beyond that, we also have some CAN dashboards for those who have the SUNY login and the federated login to get behind, the credentials. We have the CAN dashboards that are available. They're organized by content area. So there's essentially folders in there. So one of them would be academic programs, there's an enrollment folder, there's online dashboards. There is a whole section for Cirrus review dashboards. So there's plenty that already exist. And behind those dashboards are obviously the elements and the data warehouses themselves. So in order to gain access to be able to query those warehouses and kind of go behind the scenes, so to speak, you need to complete at least the introduction course through the SUNY Center for Professional Development. So that's at SUNY BI Training Workshops link here. The intro will get you the permissions that you need, and advanced will just help you maximize how you are using the tool, essentially. Once you have those, you're welcome to go and explore the dashboard, start querying some data and seeing what all is out there. Data accuracy makes the difference. I would encourage you all, if you haven't spoken with your IR person, reach out. Same for your registrar, reach out. Connect with them. IR is responsible for a lot of reporting, but we're not always necessarily the subject matter experts for every single thing that we report on. So it's really important that we have a shared understanding of the definitions, that we collaborate and understand what the workflow and the processes are. So that way the program side and the reporting side are all in alignment and we're all on the same page. What we wouldn't want to have happen, for example, is maybe we have an outlier year or there's an anomaly and we weren't aware. Now it's in this dashboard and we have leadership asking, well, what happened? And we don't even know. We can't speak to that. So by doing this, by reaching out, connecting proactively, collaborating, etc., that's how we get ahead of and, kind of prevent those kind of being blindsided situations. It's just good to know what's out there and how it's being reported. Trying to think if there was anything else. And I don't think so. So again, I mentioned that if you have any questions about those IR resources that are out there or feedback, etc., that's the contact that you can send your questions to, ir@suny.edu. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you, JoAnna. I highly recommend bookmarking and using all the resources that JoAnna shared. I know those were very helpful to me when I first started in my role. Again, can't understand how important and useful they are. So thank you. Now let's add the next layer and let's talk about the tools and resources that are available at SUNY Online. And let's start with online learning definitions. Because definitions are the edge pieces, they give structure to everything else. They ensure a faculty member and a data analyst are truly talking about the same thing. At SUNY Online, we created an online learning data definitions document that is published on the SUNY Online Services and Supports website for your quick and easy access. These definitions are aligned with the glossary of terms document that JoAnna mentioned a minute ago. Additionally, online learning definitions are available through SUNY Online dashboards, again, for your quick and easy access. So while you are exploring the dashboards, there is a tab that you can click into and see how to define an online student or an online program. So that's for a quick and easy access. Now let's take a look at each one of these dashboards and let's see what they offer. But before that, let's briefly talk about what are SUNY Online data dashboards. Those are available to all SUNY campuses behind SUNY federated login and provide data and insights about SUNY-wide online learning, as well as campus-level data and campus trends. These data dashboards bring all the data on online courses, programs, online student demographics, enrollment, faculty teaching online in one interactive place. These dashboards are designed in a tool called Tableau. As I said, they are interactive and filterable and allow you to drill down to your campus level data. Behind the scenes, these dashboards draw data from various sources, primarily from the SUNY Institutional Research Information System, or SIRIUS, that JoAnna just mentioned a minute ago. Now let's take a look at the individual dashboards, and let's start with online programs. So programs define the destination. They are pictured on the box. They tell us what we are building. It is important to understand where online programs exist, where they are concentrated and how they are evolving, where are the gaps, how they align with the regional market data and student interest. By understanding all of that, it would be easier to spot opportunities, align with regional market, and most importantly, let the students see a clear pathway from enrollment to outcomes. But let's start with definitions. At SUNY, an online program is one that offers 50% or more of the course requirements in an online or distance education format. That is aligned with New York State Education Department approval standards. This is different from how iPads defines an online that all the required coursework for program completion can be completed entirely via distance education courses. It is important to keep this distinction in mind when we compare SUNY numbers to national sources. SUNY Online Plus is a designation at a program level that brings an additional layer of support for students and faculty. Again, as a reminder that these definitions are available through the Online Learning Data Definitions document. Now that we have agreed and have a shared understanding of how we define an online program at SUNY, let's take a look at their distribution across SUNY campus sectors. And let's start by campus sector. Here's the spread of online programs by campus sector. The image on the slide is a bar chart that displays the number of online programs offered across 4 campus sectors. Community colleges have the highest number with 486 online programs, followed by university colleges with 295 and doctoral institutions with 150 online programs. Technology colleges have the fewest, offering 61 online programs. Quantity, however, is not the only story here. Some sectors offer a wide range of online programs to meet the needs of diverse communities, and others are focusing their resources on more strategically targeted fields. Beyond these numbers, it is important to look where online programs are concentrated at a sector level. Of course, where are gaps and where are opportunities based on the labor market demand and campus strength. By field, online program concentration is the strongest in business, health, and education, disciplines where adults and working learners need flexibility and where online pedagogy is well matched with learning outcomes. The image on the slide is a horizontal bar chart, part 1, that shows the number of online programs by SIP2 code. And SIP stands for Classification of Instructional Programs. The data ranges from 217, the highest in Business Management Marketing SIP code 52, to 12 in English Language and Literature SIP code 23. More lower volume fields include engineering, psychology, mathematics and statistics, biological and biomedical sciences, and other specialized fields. The image on the slide is a horizontal bar chart, part 2, that shows the remaining SIP2 categories, which have relatively smaller online program counts, ranging from 11 to 1. Zip codes 15 and 14 are highlighted with a left arrow callout and a bold data label to indicate their designation as high demand field as part of the SUNY Reconnect initiative. Now, as we interpret the data, existing data on online programs, there are really two questions we need to ask. First, where are we saturated? And two, where are we underpositioned given the labor market demands, growth opportunities, and adjust and design programs accordingly. Now, if online programs define the destination, then online course sections define the daily student experience. So in the next few slides, we're going to take a look at the online course presence at SUNY, as well as across campus sectors and modalities. But first of all, let's clear some definitions. At SUNY, asynchronous, synchronous, and combined online count as online course sections. Hybrid mixes face-to-face and online instruction. HyFlex lets the student choose between asynchronous, synchronous, and face-to-face instruction. Face-to-face is pretty straightforward. No direct instruction is delivered online. I want to stress one more time here that hybrid and HyFlex course sections are not flagged as online at SUNY. So now that we have a shared and common understanding of how we define an online course section at SUNY, look at presence across SUNY campus sectors. The image on the slide is a stacked bar chart that shows how course sections are distributed by online component across 4 campus sectors. In fall 2024, community colleges offered the highest share of online course sections at 22%. That's an interesting data to keep in mind. It is also important to look beyond these numbers and see which courses are online and how students are succeeding in those. Looking at long-term trends in online course section growth at SUNY, the image on the slide is a line chart that shows the trends in online course sections from fall 2017 to fall 2024. The online category, which is represented by a solid blue line on the chart, includes asynchronous, synchronous, and combined online course sections. The face-to-face category, represented by a dashed black line on the chart, includes face-to-face sections only. From fall 2017 to 2019, I think we've all seen this. Sections grew steadily but slowly, spiked in 2020, as we all know, due to the pandemic, and started to decrease in 2021 as in-person instruction started to return. In the last 3 years, starting from 2022, online course section growth has plateaued at SUNY and created a new baseline in fall of 2024. So COVID-19 pandemic, I think we all agree, has accelerated and sustained online course presence at SUNY, and later we'll see it nationally as well. Most online learning at SUNY, and I don't know why those two numbers are not showing, but most online learning I apologize for that, at SUNY still happens asynchronously, with smaller shares in the synchronous online and combined online sections. The image on the slide is a pie chart that shows the distribution of online course sections by modality. Now, the scale of asynchronous is no surprise for anyone. Asynchronous provides flexibility. We all know that. Now, if flexibility is all about access, then connection and a sense of community that what is our factors that drive completion. So it's important and essential to look beyond these numbers and where necessary, add some synchronous elements to this asynchronous instruction to create that belonging and sense of community without, of course, without sacrificing the flexibility. Now, I hope that you are curious by now how the data for both online programs and online course sections look at your campus. I invite you to check out the dashboards on the SUNY online dashboards and use the filters to bring up campus data and see how your campus data compares to what we're seeing at the SUNY level, or how your campus data compares to your campus sector data. So I'll leave you with that. And let's switch gears and let's look at who is learning online and how their preferences have evolved over time. First, let's clear some definitions. At SUNY, we segment students by exclusively online. Those are students taking 100% online courses. Some online students who are taking a mix of online and face-to-face courses. And face-to-face, which is pretty straightforward, those are students who are taking only in-person courses. We have also not applicable category, which includes students who are doing independent study or internship with no instructional setting in a given term. Again, part of reminding people that these definitions are available through the online learning data definitions document, as well as through the glossary of terms resource that JoAnna shared. Now that we have established some common and shared definitions of how we define an online student at SUNY, let's take a look at where students learn online at SUNY. The image on the slide is a bar chart, a stacked bar chart that compares student enrollment across sectors by online student category status of exclusively online, represented by dark blue color, some but not all online, represented by light blue color, not online, represented by color black. There is also a very narrow category of not applicable students in a given term that is represented by orange color. In fall of 2024, community colleges took the lead in online enrollment by the number of students. Now, the data reflects the role that community colleges are playing in terms of regional access and workforce mobility. The growth at the community college level, however, comes with a caveat of dual enrollments, which of course boosts the headcount. However, they carry completely different economics compared to adult learners or students enrolled in credit-bearing courses. If you are curious to know how the data looks on your campus, I encourage you to check out the online enrollment dashboard, where you have an opportunity to exclude the dual enrollments from the analysis and have a clear picture of who is learning online on your campus. Now let's take a look how student enrollment shifted across online categories over time. The image on the slide is a stacked bar chart that shows the enrollment trends across 4 categories. Exclusively online, represented by dark blue color on the chart. Some but not all online, represented by light blue color. Not online, represented by the black color on the chart. I think we have seen this trend many times, that pandemic has shifted online learning patterns. Starting 2021, as in-person instruction started to return, online enrollment started to decrease. However, they remain much higher than in the pre-pandemic years. In the fall of 2024, more than 153,000 students at SUNY took at least one online course. I think this long-term shifts signal that online learning has become a core part of how students engage in higher education. The strategic question to ask is where online delivery creates the greatest value, for which programs, for which students, and at which points in their journey. Now, the story becomes even more interesting if we further look at who is choosing to learn online. Are these trends and patterns driven mostly by adults, or are young learners also changing the way that they learn online in general? This slide is going to help us unpack that question by comparing exclusively online enrollment at SUNY across 2 age groups. The image on the slide is a line chart that shows exclusively online enrollment at SUNY from fall 2017 to fall 2024 for two age groups. Traditional students under 25, represented by a dashed black line on the chart, and adult students aged 25 and older, represented by a solid blue line on the chart. By fall 2024, adult students continue to make up the larger exclusively online cohort. However, it is essentially important to note the significant increase in the number of exclusively online enrollments across the traditional student age group since fall 2019. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's switch gears, and I'm checking time here. And let's put SUNY into the national context, and let's start with the IPEDS, which stands for Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. In the next few slides, we're going to see how online enrollment has changed nationally and how those trends and patterns compare to what we are seeing at SUNY. But first, to be consistent, let's start with definitions and clear those first. In IPEDS, distance education course is one where all instructional content can be completed remotely. In-person elements such as orientation, academic supports do not disqualify it. A distance education program is one where students can complete all required coursework through distance education courses. I want to highlight again that hybrid and HyFlex course sections are not defined and not considered or flagged as distance education in IPEDS as well. Now, when we have a shared and common understanding of how distance education is defined nationally, let's take a look at some trends. The image on the chart is a line chart. On the slide is a line chart that shows 3 national trends in distance education from fall 2017 to fall 2024. And this is for all US institutions. Students taking at least one online course, represented by a solid orange line on the chart. Students enrolled exclusively online, represented by a solid blue line on the chart. And students enroll in some but not all online courses, represented by a dashed blue line on the chart. Very similar to the trends we're seeing at SUNY in 2021, as in-person instruction started to return, online enrollment started to decrease across all 3 categories. By fall of 2024, all 3 measures settled into a new stable normal, a new baseline, each substantially higher than in 2019. So at a national level, the data signals that students nationally have changed the way they engage with higher education. I think it's impressive to know that in fall of 2024, more than half of all students nationally at all US institutions enrolled in at least one online course. This is at the national level. Now let's take a look at how these trends and patterns compare to what we are seeing at SUNY. The image on the slide is a line chart that compares the percentage of students taking at least one online course at SUNY, that is represented by a solid blue line on the chart, with the percentage of students at public institutions nationally, that is represented by a dashed black line on the chart. Across all years, SUNY's share is consistently lower, about 42% at SUNY compared to 55% nationally as of fall of 2024, which is the most recent data that is available. This is both a challenge for SUNY and for surely a strategic opportunity to grow and do better. Let's add the next layer and talk about the NC-SARA data tools and resources, and look at where students live physically and where the institutions that they enroll exclusively online are located. The image on the slide is a line chart. Number of exclusive distance education students who physically live in New York State but attend an institution outside of the state from fall 2017 to fall 2024. In fall of 24, more than 74,000 New York State students, while physically being located in the state of New York, enrolled in exclusively distance education courses outside of the state. That's a big number, but understanding which institutions draw this New York State students is essential to design and deliver experiences that keep New York State students and hopefully at SUNY. The leading destinations include some of the well-known online providers, such as Southern New Hampshire University, Western Governors University, as well as Penn Foster College and Grand Canyon University. Their playbooks emphasize flexibility and speed, career-aligned programs, robust student support services, and fair to say that a lot of marketing monies. On the flip side, New York State institutions, including SUNY, enroll more than 31,000 students, those non-New York State students, in exclusively distance education courses in the fall of 2024. The image on the slide is a line chart that shows the number of exclusively distance education students who are attending an institution in New York State, but are located outside of the state. It's important to be aware of these numbers when doing program planning. Excelsior University, Bryan and Stratton College are the top institutions in New York State, draw a large number of students, those non-New York State residents. SUNY has a strategic opportunity to grow its share and expand its reach beyond the state lines. The image on the slide is a table that shows the top 5 institutions attended by New York incoming students in fall of 2024. Okay, now let's switch gears again. So if enrollment data tells us what students want today, then labor market data tells us what they, and most importantly, employers will need next. Aligning program design to skills and jobs is part of the puzzle that makes the whole picture matter. So labor market tools such as Lightcast Analyst allow us to analyze programs, occupations, regions, and more critically, skills. Their skills taxonomy, available on their website, is a free and accessible library of 33,000 plus skills in 30 plus skill categories that allows to align program curricula to those specific skills that employers are putting in the job announcements. This is a great resource that I highly, highly recommend you checking it out. So let us know how we can help you. Okay, I think we're nearing to the end of our presentation. I think I'm doing good on time. So beyond all the resources that JoAnna and I shared in the next hour or so, there is a rich ecosystem of other external resources that can help validate strategy and direction. I've included those resources range from state labor data to sector research to student surveys. I've included some of those here on the slide. If you can think of any others at the moment, please feel free to put them in the chat and share with all the summit participants. I will also make sure to include those in the slide deck when we share after the conference. And with that, let's wrap up some key takeaways. As we all learned today, there is a lot of data that is available at your fingertips to support your work as distance learning leaders. Please, please let the shared and common definitions be your foundation when working with data and driving informed strategic choices. As JoAnna mentioned, and as Jocelyn mentioned in the session prior, build and sustain inclusive collaboration and relationships on your campus. Reach out to your institutional research office. Institutional research office is busy. They report a lot of data on a daily basis. They may not know how hybrid is different from HyFlex or online. So create those inclusive relationships and collaboration on your campus. And I'm going to borrow a phrase from Jocelyn. It's say build coalition that which going to make the action easy. And finally, and most importantly, we are here to support you. Let us know how we can help. Please reach out. We are here to help you to reach your campus goals. And with that, again, thank you for taking the time. I've included our emails here on the slide, which I'm going to ask Lori to put in the chat as well. JoAnna, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think the key takeaways and your wrap up, really re-emphasize the same things that I would have. So thank you.
Great. Well, it's back to you, Lori.
Well, let me see if I see any questions in the chat. I saw that one of our attendees is going to be contacting you for help logging in to
Absolutely.
the dashboards. And someone had a question about, Ken had a question about doctoral institutions versus comprehensive, but JoAnna answered it during the talk.
That's right.
So I put all of the links in the chat as your slides were coming. And I believe you're going to be putting this slide up on the website, right?
Yeah, we're
So,
going to share. I'm going to stop for people, but absolutely, we're going to share the slide deck both on the website and through the Summit Connect space.
okay, great. So I have a few things here. I got to go back to the chat. There are the 3 links that are part of the slide. And I just want to say that I really thank Viktorya and JoAnna and all the participants for your time and attention during today's session. Keep the conversation going. If you registered by February 16th, you have access to our companion space in Brightspace. It's called the SUNY Online Summit Connect. In this space, you can join discussion forums, ask questions, review resources, and continue exploring the ideas shared here. Our next session, which I believe starts at 2:30, is Voices of Impact, SUNY Distance Learning Leaders Showcase. Please join us.